Okay, picture a world where the maps we completely take for granted today literally just didn't exist yet. It's a blank slate. Now, imagine an empire so sprawling, so overwhelmingly dominant that people back then actually said the sun never sets on the Spanish Empire. We're talking about a time when sailors and wooden ships were crossing these terrifying, completely unknown oceans. They were discovering new worlds, and honestly, forever changing the course of human history in the process. This isn't just some dry story about claiming land. It's a deeply human story of raw ambition, massive risks, and a cultural explosion that we still feel today.
Welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you with us today. We are going to unpack exactly how Spain went from being a fractured, divided peninsula to becoming one of the absolute greatest global powers the world has ever seen. But look, more than just the politics and the endless conquests, we're going to focus on the people. We want to see how this monumental global rise birthed this vibrant, 100% human culture that we can still taste, hear, and feel centuries later.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with 1, the age of exploration, move on to 2, a global empire, check out 3, dawn of the golden age, explore 4, enduring culture and traditions, and finish up with 5, Spain's culinary heritage. All right, kicking things off with section 1, the age of exploration. 1492 was just a massive turning point, not only for Spain, but for the entire globe. For centuries before that, the Iberian Peninsula was basically defined by endless conflict. But then, in early 1492, Queen Isabella I and King Ferdinand II finally unite the crown. And that same year, they capture Granada, which was the last Muslim kingdom in Spain. But their biggest, most globally impactful move was still to come. They decided to back this highly ambitious navigator, Christopher Columbus, who was convinced he could hit Asia just by sailing west across the Atlantic. Against literally all odds, he lands in the Americas. Now, he never actually realized he'd stumbled upon a whole new continent, but that single voyage opened a wild new chapter for humanity. Practically overnight, Spain was standing right at the center of global exploration.
Moving right along to section 2, a global Spanish empire.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the sheer, unprecedented speed of the expansion once that door was blown open. Within just a couple of decades, Spanish explorers were traveling farther than anyone had even thought was possible. They're crossing both the Atlantic and the Pacific. Over in the Americas, they're claiming vast territories, what we now know as Mexico, Peru, and Cuba. In Asia and Africa, they're reaching the Philippines and securing these huge coastal regions. And what did all this mean for the folks back home? Wealth. Huge amounts of gold and silver flowing straight from these territories right into Spain, turning it into the wealthiest nation on earth. Which brings us right back to that incredible opening quote. At its peak, stretching across multiple continents, it was literally true. Somewhere across its enormous territories, daylight was always shining. But the real legacy here wasn't just, drawing new geographical lines on a map. These explorers introduced entirely new trade routes. They brought new languages, stunning new architecture, and enduring traditions to millions of people. It was this massive collision of worlds that still heavily shapes our global society today. And that brings us to section 3, dawn of the golden age. So, what actually happens when a country suddenly acquires unparalleled global wealth? Well, for Spain in the 16th and 17th centuries, it sparked a massive cultural explosion. It's that classic historical cause and effect. Political power plus massive wealth equals a complete societal transformation. They poured all those riches into building these magnificent cathedrals, sprawling royal palaces, cutting-edge universities, and these grand public squares. And the crazy part? So many of them are still standing proud to today. And this brilliantly illustrates the human side of that golden era. Right in the middle of this remarkable creative peak, Miguel de Cervantes writes Don Quixote. Now, this isn't just a Spanish masterpiece. It is literally one of the most influential novels in all of world literature. It's a great reminder that behind the mountains of gold and the massive global armadas, there were just everyday individuals dreaming, writing, and creating human stories that we're still talking about centuries later.
All right, shifting gears to section 4, enduring culture and traditions.
Because Spain is so much more than just a history textbook. Its traditions are living, breathing things. Just look at flamenco. Born down in the southern region of Andalusia, it is this incredibly raw, visceral mix. You've got passionate singing, deeply emotional guitar, that famous rhythmic hand clapping, and just wildly powerful dance movements. Every single time it's performed, it's an authentic, deeply human story being told about love, joy, sorrow, and resilience. Honestly, you don't just watch flamenco, you feel it in your bones.
And that intense passion, it spills right over into their festivals, which are completely unforgettable.
Millions of people flock to these events every year. On one side of the spectrum, you have the pure, chaotic joy of La Tomatina, where literally thousands of people get together for the sole purpose of throwing tomatoes at each other. It is a blast. Then, on the other hand, you have the intense, highly famous, and often controversial, running of the bulls in Pamplona. They're vastly different vibes for sure, but both of them really show off something essential about the Spanish people. This incredibly deep, enduring connection to their community and their shared history. Which leads us perfectly into Section 5, Spain's culinary heritage.
You can't talk about Spain without talking about the food, right? It's celebrated all over the globe. The iconic paella out of Valencia, the entire culture of tapas, that deeply flavorful jamón ibérico, the incredibly fresh Mediterranean seafood, and of course, that rich golden olive oil. The cuisine itself is basically a map of diverse cultures mixing together over hundreds of years. So the crucial point is, while the menu is obviously extraordinary, the food is actually just the vehicle for something much deeper.
See, meals in Spain aren't just about inhaling calories so you can get back to work. Not at all. They are highly intentional, cherished moments to gather with family, celebrate friendship, and just genuinely enjoy life. That joyful, 100% human communal lifestyle, that is arguably one of Spain's absolute greatest cultural treasures. It's just a beautiful way to live. So, Spain's story is this incredible tapestry of outward exploration, immense wealth, breathtaking art, and a truly enduring human spirit. But as we know from looking at history, every empire eventually hits a wall. Wars, revolutions, and massive political shifts were inevitably on the horizon, ready to reshape Spain all over again. The story is far from over. In fact, it's only getting more fascinating. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I'm going to leave you with this one thought. What exactly happens when the sun finally sets on an empire?